Good morning and hello everyone. I am Mrs. Varsha and today we are going to study another topic from our unit 2 which was based on the theme freedom. And before starting my topic, let us just ponder on this thought. For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. This is said by none other than the greatest leader from South Africa, Nelson Mandela. As you all know that he struggled so hard to get the freedom for South Africa. He was imprisoned for 27 years in jail in the Robben Islands, and his struggle is like an example to the whole world that how a person with his determination, he moved his country from bondage to freedom. So now, not only South Africa's example, but if we see the example of India, Indians also faced a lot of trouble during their freedom struggles. And as you can see, this is the image of the cellular jail from Andaman and Nicobar. And here many great Indian leaders, they were imprisoned. And these leaders, they showed or paved the way for our freedom. So, let me take you to the next slide. Here you can see that during this imprisonment, these leaders, they also wrote their accounts. And this is one of the account, Aap Biti by Bhai Parmanand. And he was also a person who was imprisoned in the cellular jail in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Then if we take another example, you can see our father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. He was imprisoned so many times during the freedom struggle, as well as our first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. He was imprisoned in the Ahmednagar Fort, and there he wrote his very famous book, The Discovery of India. So even though these leaders, they were imprisoned, but they were always thinking about freedom and what progress their nation is going to make in future. Even though they were in a very enclosed space, but their thoughts were not enclosed. They always thought about the prosperity of the nation. So children, today similarly, now this is regarding human beings, but what about the plight of the animals? Have you ever thought what animals feel in the enclosed spaces where we have put them? Children, today a similar thought we have to keep in mind, and today I am going to take you to the theme of these imprisoned animals with our poem, A Tiger in the Zoo. Now this poem, it is written by Leslie Norris. See here children, now I have shown you that so many animals, they are imprisoned. Yes, A Tiger in the Zoo by Leslie Norris. So Leslie Norris, he was a Welsh poet, and he is a well-known post-war poet, the post-World War, and Welsh poetry is very, very famous. Okay, he was a person belonging to Wales in England, and Leslie Norris, he also was awarded many times for his literary work, not only in poetry, but he also wrote many short stories. He was awarded with the Colomondeley Award, which is a very prestigious award with regards to poets. Now, let us move on to our poem. In this poem, A Tiger in the Zoo, written by Leslie Norris, the poet has expressed two aspects of the captivity of this tiger. he is expressing his view when the tiger is in the zoo, as well as he is expressing his view about the tiger when the tiger would be free. What the tiger would have done if he would have been free. The poem starts in the beginning with the tiger in captivity, then it moves to the tiger in the jungle, and again it comes back in the conclusion to the tiger in the cage again. So now let us read the poem, and then paragraph wise we will analyze the poem. So the poem says that he stalks in his vivid strips the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass, near the water hole where plump deer pass. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Now this is the poem, A Tiger in the Zoo. Now let us analyze the poem paragraph wise. Let us first see the first paragraph. Now in this first paragraph, the poet is saying that he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. Now stalks here means he is following something, okay, and the tiger is explained as having very vivid stripes. Vivid means very brightly colored. Yes, the yellow color of the tiger is very bright. Then the few steps of his cage. If he is walking just only a few steps, it means that the cage is very, very small. So that is why he can take only a few steps in his cage, on pads of velvet quiet. So what are these pads? Pads refer to the paws of the tiger. Okay, they are very soft like the velvet. So it is mentioned that on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. Now here rage means anger. Okay, why he is angry? Why the tiger is angry? Because he is captivated. He is kept in an enclosed space. He is not used to being in an enclosed space. You all know that tiger is such a ferocious wild animal, and if you keep such a wild animal in enclosed space, what will be the condition of that animal? It is going to be, naturally it is going to be very, very angry. So that is why it is termed here in his quiet rage. But even though he is angry, he cannot do anything because he is enclosed in that cage. There is no option for him. He cannot move out of the cage. So he is very, very angry. Now let us see the literary devices that are used in this particular paragraph. So let us start first with the rhyming scheme of the lines. So our first line, it is, he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage, on pads of velvet quiet in his quiet rage. Now here if you will mark at the end of the two lines, okay, that is line number 2, we have the word cage, and line number 4 we have the word rage. These two words we can see that they are the rhyming words, and if you look at the first word At the end of the first line it is stripes. And the third word over here in the third line, it is quiet. So if you look at the words, you will see that if I mark this first word sound as sound A, okay, and in the second line, if you look at the last word, it is cage, but it is different from the sound at the word of the first line. Stripes and cage, they do not rhyme. So I move on to the next letter to represent the sound of the second line. So this sound I will represent by the letter B, because it is a different sound. Then if we move on to the third word which is there, which is the last word in the third line, we see that it is quiet. And if you compare quiet with both the words before it, you can see that quiet, cage, stripes, there is no similarity in the sound, right? So I move on to the next alphabet here, and I represent this sound of the word quiet with the letter C. Now the next word, it is rage. So if we compare this word with the previous three words, we will see rage and quiet. Is there any similarity in the sound? No. If I say rage and cage, yes, there is a similarity. There is a j sound at the end of these two words. So as the sound is similar, so I am going to represent this word with a similar sound. So I give the same letter which I have used for the word cage to the word rage. So similar letter is what? B. So this gives us the rhyming scheme of our first passage. So what is the rhyming scheme here now? A, B, C, B. Right? So now let us move on to the next literary device that is used in this particular paragraph, this particular stanza. So there is personification used. Why? Because the first line itself, it is saying that he stalks in his vivid stripes. Now we all know that who is this he in the poem? He is the tiger. Is tiger a human being? No, tiger is not a human being, but the poet has referred to him to be a human being. The poet has given him the quality of a human being. So that is why I will say that here the literary device personification is used. Yes, so the qualities of a person. Okay, the animal is given the quality of a person. So that is why personification is also used in this stanza. Then if we go on to the next literary device, we see here the poet describing the paws of the tiger as on pads of velvet quiet. On pads, pads means the feet of the animal. How are they? They are velvet quiet. So these pads, he has directly compared them to velvet. Yes, means they are as soft as velvet. But we do not see here the terms being used that as soft as or like velvet. Directly he has said that he is having pads of velvet quiet. So that is why here there is a direct comparison. So that is why this direct comparison, we term it as a metaphor. If we go further, then if we look at the sentences in this stanza, here there is enjambment. Enjambment means the thoughts of the poet, they continue to the next thought without any interruption in between. Okay, the interruption in the language, it will be what? The punctuation marks. So if there are no punctuation marks in between and the thought is being continued of the poet, then it is termed as enjambment. So here in this we find enjambment. In the first two lines itself, we see that he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage. There is no punctuation mark in between. So that is enjambment. So if we continue, we can see here imagery also being used. Yes, imagery as in the sense that the poet has, you can say, he is appealing to the senses of the reader. Yes, and he is creating a picture of the tiger in the mind of the reader with his words. So such type of description, it is called as imagery. So he stalks in his vivid stripes the few steps of his cage. This is the image of the tiger being created in the mind of the readers by the poet. Then the next literary device that we see is consonants. Here the S sound is repeated in this line, that of the few steps of his cage, and here he stalks in his vivid stripes. So the S sound is repeated over there, that is consonants. Then assonance is also there. Assonance means what? The vowel sounds are repeated in the line. So now in his vivid stripes, there I sound is repeated in the neighboring words in that particular line. So it is assonance. The next, there is a device called as oxymoron. Now what is this oxymoron? Oxymoron means two adjectives, two descriptive words which are having totally opposite meaning. They are combined together and used. Okay, like in the fourth line of this stanza, in his quiet rage. Now you all know that if a person is angry, he is going to make a very loud sound. Isn't it? If your teacher is angry, she is going to shout at you. Your mother is angry, she is going to shout at you. If you are angry with your friends, you shout at your friends. But here, what it is given, the description given about the tiger's rage is in his quiet rage. So it is oxymoron, because these are two contrasting words which are describing this tiger. Now let us move on to our next stanza. The next stanza says that what the tiger would have done if he would have been free. Yes, the first stanza, it is telling us about the tiger in the zoo, in a cage, in an enclosed space. But in the second stanza, the poet is talking about what the tiger would have done if he would have been free to move around. So what the tiger would have done, let us read it. He says that he should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass, near the water hole where plump deer pass. So what the tiger would have been doing, he would have been lurking in a shadow. Lurking means hiding. He would have been hiding in the shadow of tall grass. Yes, you will find tigers mostly in West Bengal. If we see the Sundarban area, you all are aware that Sundarban area is a swamp with very tall grasses as well as mangroves. Yes, so these tigers, what do? They hide in the shadow of the tall grasses over there. So if this particular tiger would have been free, he would have also been hiding in the shadows of these tall grasses. Then near the water hole where plump deer pass. Now in the forest, we all know that all animals, if they are thirsty, they go to a place where water is available. Like they will move to a lake or they will move to a river bank. So wherever these animals move, then the predators are always ready to catch hold of these other animals. So animals like deer, then other animals which are there, which feed on the grass, like the zebras are there. There are some animals, or we can say that all the bovine animals which are there, they are hunted by these predators. And where do they get a chance to hunt them? Near the water holes or near the sources of water. So if the tiger would have been free, what he would be doing? He would be hiding behind some tall grasses, trying to find his prey in the jungle. And what would be his prey? His prey would be the plump or the healthy deer, which would come to drink water at the water hole. Now let us see the literary devices that are being used in this particular passage. First important thing, or the first literary device we are discussing, that is the rhyming scheme. Now, as it was told earlier to you all, in the first stanza I explained to you all that how you are going to decide the rhyming scheme of the stanza. Now what I am going to do is I will write the words which are at the end of the lines of the stanza 2, and you all are going to tell me what sound or what letter should be there to represent the sound of that particular word. So I am going to write these words. So first word is shadow, next is grass, then the next word is hole, and the next word is pass. So now please tell me, the first sound we are always representing with letter small a. Now, is there a similarity in sound between shadow and grass? No. So we move on to the next letter. Now, grass and hole, and we also compare this hole with shadow. Is there any similarity in the sound of these words? No. So we go or move on to the next letter. So that is C. Now, the next word, it is pass. Can you see any word similar to this pass?
Grass.
Yes, that's right. Grass is the word which has similar sound to the word pass. So we are going to represent it with the same letter. So here we get our rhyming scheme again, that is A, B, C, B. In the first stanza also we had the same rhyming scheme. So the poet has in his entire poem tried to use the same rhyming scheme for each and every stanza. So when I explain you the next stanza, you all already know that what is the rhyming scheme of that particular stanza. Right. Now let us move on to the other literary devices being used here. So in the end of the line, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass, there is no punctuation mark given at all. So if there are no punctuation marks, the thoughts are continued without any interruption. So what is that literary device called then? It's enjambment, because there is no break in the thought of the poet. Then the next literary device, it is alliteration. Now here in this line where plump deer pass, the p sound is repeated, creating a musical effect. Yes, so that is why we say that it is the start of the two words plump and pass. Yes, the per sound is repeated, that is alliteration. Now the next important device used here as well is imagery. The poet has created in our mind the image of a tiger freely roaming in the jungle. He is hiding behind the long grass. That image comes to your mind. You get a picture, isn't it? So that is why the imagery is what? The poet tries to create image of all the tiger's activities. Like he is hiding, then he is trying to kill the deer which will come near the water hole. So all these images come to our mind, all these pictures come to our mind. So that is why the next device it is imagery. Now let us move ahead. The next stanza also. Now the tiger, he is in the jungle. Now supposing in the jungle he doesn't find any deer. One fine day the tiger is very hungry. He doesn't know what to do. And he is so hungry that he wants to eat something. So then what does he do? He'll try to move to some other place than the jungle. So where does he move then? He moves near the boundary of the jungle where there are some villages. And in the villages easily he is going to get few domestic animals to eat, right? So when he is free, and as you all know that the numbers of the deer, it is reducing, the numbers of other animals which the tiger can eat in the jungle, it is reduced to such an extent that nowadays you must have heard the news of some leopards moving in the cities. Yes, am I right? You must have heard all these news, leopards moving in the cities, monkeys jumping around in the houses. Why do they do it? Because in their natural habitat they are not able to get the food, isn't it? What are our basic needs? Food is the basic need, and these animals also need food. So what do they do if they don't get in the jungle? They come near the boundaries of the villages where easily they can find the domestic animals, kill them and have them. So the tiger in our poem also, what he is doing? When he doesn't get a plump deer near the water hole, he tries to move near the boundary of the village, near the boundary of the jungle where he can easily find some domestic animals which he will have as his food. So let us read this stanza. It says that he should be snarling around houses. Snarling is the voice made by the tiger, the ferocious voice which the tiger makes at the jungle's edge. He's coming at the edge of the jungle. I just told you all what are the reasons. Why does he come near the edge of the jungle? Bearing his white fangs. Fangs are his teeth. Fangs are his teeth. His claws. Claws are the nails of his toes. And terrorizing the village. Naturally, if all of a sudden a wild animal comes in front of me, I would be scared to death. Yes, so these village people, they will also be terrorized because of the voice of a tiger. And if they look at his expression, that deadly expression on the face of the tiger, they are going to fall flat on the ground. They will be numb. So here our tiger also, what he should be doing according to the poet? He should be terrorizing the villages. Yes, now let us see the literary devices that our poet is using in this passage. As told earlier, you all know now what is the rhyming scheme of the stanza. It is going to be A, B, C, D. You can see here clearly, houses, edge, clause, village. Houses, edge, clause, village. Now in this edge and village, they have the same sound. So it is the rhyming scheme is A, B, C, B. So let us go to the other literary devices that are being used here. Yes, enjambment, of course. Again, the thought process continues to the next and there is no interruption. So it is enjambment. Like the line continues to next line without punctuation marks, that is sliding through and deer pass. If you read sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass, there is no punctuation mark in between. So that is enjambment. Then the next is alliteration. Use of the sound per, plump, deer, pass. Okay, the per sound it is repeated with. Then imagery again. Okay, he is terrorizing the village. So there is imagery again over there. Now again from the village, from the free environment, the tiger is moving again to an enclosed space. Okay, as I told you all earlier that the tiger has begun, the poet has begun the journey of the tiger from the cage. He moves on to the free environment and again he moves to the zoo. Now let us see that in the zoo what is the condition of the tiger again. So, but the poet is saying, but he is locked in a concrete cell. You all know what is concrete made up of, isn't it? Cement, bricks, water, all these things it is made up of. And it is a cell. Cell means it is a very small space. It is not a very big space. It is a cell. Like in we say prison cell. How are the prison cells? They are very small, where the movement is hindered. You cannot move freely in the cell. So, but he is locked in a concrete cell. His strength behind bars. A ferocious wild animal behind bars. So, what is happening? His strength, is his strength utilized over there? No, he cannot run freely kilometers together in search of prey. He is enclosed in that environment, means his strength is confined to that cell. Then, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. You all must have observed the animals in the zoo. They ignore the visitors. They are least bothered who is coming to see them. They do not care for the visitors. What they want, they just want their freedom. Now, let us move to the literary devices being used in this particular passage. Now, again the same thing, the rhyming scheme will be A, B, C, B, as we have discussed earlier. Now, let us see some other literary devices that are being used over here. They are personification, as the tiger is personified, his strength is behind bars. Okay, so wherever the tiger is referred to as he has been allotted the qualities of a human being. So it is a personification. Then assonance, he locked concrete cell. Here everywhere the E sound is repeated. Then consonance is there, use of the consonant sound S. His strength bars. The S sound is repeated. And alliteration where two consecutive words, they are starting with the same sound. Okay, here it is the B sound behind bars. So that is an alliteration. Let us move to the next stanza. Now the next stanza, it is just showing the plight of these animals. How unhappy the animals are in that enclosed space. He hears the last voice at night. The patrolling cars and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. It is a very pathetic thing, isn't it? A very, you can say, ferocious wild animal put in the cage in the zoo. Yes, it is the plight of the animals. Their freedom is taken away. They cannot do what they want to do. Yes, if the similar situation is there with us human beings, then our plight is totally different. Our plight has a voice, but what about them? They don't have any voice. They cannot have any stand for their freedom. But we human beings, we do have it. Now here again, let us see the literary devices what are used. So here again the rhyming scheme as it is A, B, C, B. Here also cars and stars, it is having a similar sound. So that is why the rhyming scheme is A, B, C, B. Let us look at some other literary devices being used there. Enjambment, again because the thought process is not stopped, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. There is no punctuation marks in between. And alliteration, he hears the H sound, the H, it is repeated over there. Then assonance sound, I is repeated with his brilliant. The I sound is repeated. Now, do you identify this animal? It's a panda. Do you know why few animals are caged? It is just because we human beings don't want these animals to be extinct. Like the tiger also, there were only 1400 tigers remaining in the wild just before few years, say 10 years back. But when these tigers were put into captivity, or rather they were given protection, their hunting was stopped, their poaching was stopped. So because of that, their numbers increased. It means sometimes the captivity can be beneficial too. And another example for this, you can see this. What is this? This is our lockdown. Right? You can identify with this very well, children. Now we are in just like the animals, we too are now caged. We are in an closed environment. Just you can see this family, they are laughing. Why they are laughing? Because they are alive. They are happy to be alive and to enjoy the next day. They are very much happy. So even though there are some you can say benefits of you can say freedom, but there are some benefits of captivity too, we can say that. And in conclusion, I would just like to put this thought in your mind, that is, may we think of freedom not as the right to do as we please, but as an opportunity to do what is right. So our priority every time, it should be to do what is right. With this thought, we end this poem, A Tiger in the Zoo. I hope you enjoyed it.